All right, guys, welcome to day 22 of training to qualify for Tokyo 2025. Today, we're going to talk about the one thing that I wish I knew in my early 20s that would have made me a way better runner. I'll be filming my strength weights today to really let you guys... I'll be filming my strength weights today just to give you guys an idea of what I do when I'm lifting a little bit heavier, so it should be a good one. The one thing that I wish I knew when I was in my 20s is that in order to be the best, you have to be trained by the best. There's a reason that whenever you see world champions in whatever events you watch or Olympic champions, that you see most of the people have a lot of the same coaches. You'll see athletes from America, Canada, Australia. It seems that they all have the same coach sometimes, and it's because they do. Very successful coaches know what they're doing, and they know how to coach athletes to be champions because they've done it before. And because they've done it before and coach athletes to be champions, they also attract a bunch of extremely ambitious athletes who want to be champions. It reminds me of that Steve Jobs biography, where a big theme of the book and of Steve Jobs' philosophy is that A players want to work for A players and A players want to work with A players. It's the exact same concept in sales, where the best salesmen typically work for companies whose products or service either have the biggest commission or the easiest products to sell, because that way you make the most money. I did a lot of very wrong things in my 20s in terms of training, and it was purely because I didn't know better and I could not diagnose the problems I was having, and everybody I was seeing could not diagnose them either. This was until I saw my current head coach, Bruce Craven from Craven Sports Services, and I remember the first thing he told me to do when I saw him. When I first saw him, I saw him as like a physiotherapy because he's also a physical therapist. And he said, okay, do some drills. And he said, do A's, B's, and C's. And I remember first time doing A's, like the first time he'd ever seen me doing anything related to running. He said, stop. He says, you have to, like your hips are dumped forward. You're this, and like try it again, but do this. And I remember it just stuck so clear to me just because like right away he knew. It's like, okay, well, I'm not doing this properly. And since I wasn't doing my drills properly, you better have guessed it, I was not running properly either. Over the course of the next few months, when I first saw him, I quite literally had to relearn how to run. And at the time, I was very injured. I was injured for months again, and my injury wasn't getting better. I had been to doctors, I had been to physical therapists, and I actually asked one doctor. I said, will I ever be able to run competitively again? Will I be able to run like workouts? And he flat out told me, he says he doesn't know, because the injury I had was considered chronic. And so when I went to Bruce, I was in shambles. I was 25 years old, and it had been an extremely frustrating, at that point, 7 years. My track career was going nowhere. I wasn't running faster. I was consistently training for maybe 2 to 4 months at a time before I would get a multi-month injury, way longer than the time I was training for. And this had happened for a while. And I spent some time with Bruce, and we totally relearned how to run. I was doing tons and hours of drills and just running in front of him, running in front of a camera, and he was diagnosing all the problems I had. And I remember after seeing him, I went back to my home, which was in Ontario. Bruce was in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. And I remember going for a 30-minute easy run. And I remember 10 minutes into the easy run, my glutes felt like they were going to explode because of my new running style. And I remember stopping thinking, I am in so much trouble. My running career might be totally over, and I have to 100% commit to this new running style and this new training, or else it's over anyways. So this was kind of like my last ditch effort to try and keep my running going, which I was absolutely desperate to do. And things slowly got better. The injury that I had, it didn't totally go away for another year and a half, but I was able to train and do things that would push the injury to like a 2, maybe 2.5 out of 10 of discomfort, because when I pushed it to there, it didn't hurt the day after or later in the day. So I was able to train. And I was able to train full time for the first time in almost a decade at that point. And for the next 2 years, between 2019 and 2021, all we did was just train and learn the very basics of running. I physically was not able to compete in 2019, 2020, and towards the summer of 2021, I was getting in good enough shape and training enough where I was going to be racing my first track season in 7 years. I had not raced a single track race since 2014 before the year of 2021. Now, my problems were pretty unique. I was extremely injury prone due to my height, my weight, and just the way my body works. Won't experience the same things that I experienced. But I'm not kidding myself either. There are still plenty of people who had it and have it way worse than I do in terms of injuries and not being able to train for long periods of time. But had I had a proper coach in my early 20s, guys, even in my teens, I would have been training and been way more productive in my training this whole time rather than having pretty much a lost decade, maybe even a little bit more than a decade, guys. I wasn't an athlete where you could just tell them, hey, go run this amount of mileage, go do these workouts, and everything was fine. There was always problems, and the problems at the end of the day for me was my running mechanics and strength imbalances just around my body. And for the first 2 years of my comeback to running between the ages of 25 and 27, we just focused on mechanics pretty much. I had never done so many drills in my life. I had never been sore doing so many drills in my life. I remember going to fields and doing drills uphill, and after, you think 5, 7, 8, 9 times going uphill doing drills, you're done. No, we got like 20, 30 more sets of different drills, and I just remember waking up in the morning being extremely sore and obviously a bit doubtful of where I'm going to be in the future in terms of running, because I looked at all of my competitors, all of my colleagues, all the professional runners, and they're not doing what I was doing. But the reason why I was doing what I was doing is because I was just at a totally different stage. And Bruce realized that. I was in a totally different stage of running. I was the equivalent of a 14 or 15-year-old just getting into running and learning how to do it properly, because I had years of training running improperly. So all my muscles had gotten really strong running improperly. So we had to pretty much redo all of our brain muscle connections and start using our glutes in particular. Now, when I met Bruce, I totally stumbled upon him by chance. It's a crazy story and a story for another time. But when you met him, you knew that he knew what he was talking about. One skill that I feel I have is I'm able to identify people who really know what they're talking about and distinguish them from people who don't, or people who are like scammers. And you could see it in Bruce's work too. Bruce has a specific niche where athletes come to him when they're totally broken and they need a total revamp in their career or a total revamp in the way they've been training because of a severe injury. And that's how I went to him, and that's how a lot of athletes that have gone to him have went through a similar process. And if I had not met him, I definitely would not be where I am right now. And to be honest, guys, it saddens me to think where I would be at right now without him. But Bruce is one of those superstars, those A players that I've been talking about. And being coached by him has made me to continue to get better now well into my 30s. I might have to add 10 to 20 pounds to that in total. Now, this doesn't mean if you don't have the best coach right now that you'll never be great and you'll never amount to anything in the sport of track and field. First off, the average coach, the average good coach nowadays is so much better than it was even 10 years ago. The internet and resources and the amount of experts sharing their opinions and their philosophies and their training programs is higher than ever. The barrier to entry to be great has never been lower, though it is still extremely high. Another caveat to this too is, even if you have just a good coach or a really good coach, typically like your average American institution, whether it's a good high school or any NCAA Division 1, 2, or 3 school, the facilities and access to resources you have are unparalleled to most parts of the world. As soon as you're outside of that system, things get exponentially harder. You're always struggling to find a track to run. You have to pay for your gym membership. You have to pay for your life. All of your family and friends are way less patient with you now because they want you to get on with your life. You have to pay your coaches. You have to pay for massage therapy. You have to pay for your food, your supplements. When you're in college, most of this stuff is looked after for you. And that's a recipe to be great. So take advantage of it while you can. With that said, guys, I've seen dozens of chiropractors, physical therapists, coaches, specialists, and none of them could solve my problems until I met Bruce. And some of these people I'd seen before, I would even consider them great, or at least very good, but they weren't very good for me, and they didn't have the understanding of body mechanics as Bruce does, and they had a lesser understanding of training philosophy. So, in conclusion, if you want to become great at track and field and pretty much anything else, guys, you got to work with A players. You got to be coached by A players. You got to work out with A players. And even outside of track and field, you have to work with A players that include your friends and the people you surround yourself with. So, on that note, I have to get the rest of my workout done. It's getting a little bit more crowded in here, so I'll see you guys next time.